So I'm here to evangelize the WinstonsLab prediction game, which has just come out. So I'd like to discuss why I think that the probability-based predictions is a superior format to the typical ones that we see in esports, where you either ask, who do you think the favorite is, who do you think is going to win, or even giving a specific match score. So the downside of these formats is that they're very low granularity. They give very little information about what someone thinks, how close a game actually is going to be. So they would treat, for instance, in the finals, they might add some adjectives to try to distinguish, but at the same time, if you think that someone is a 51, 49% favorite, they would get the same answer as if they had a 80% 20 or a 95% 5 percent favorites. What this really does is it gives us a very low sample size of the analyst's ability to actually understand the uncertainty of what they're dealing with, since they're going to have a pretty high success rate in many cases because many times are a slam dunk. And the few times that it really is close to 50-50, where they would disagree with other analysts, it likely is going to be a toss-up. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, because the inherent real probability is probably not too far from 50%. Although, if someone's a particularly poor analyst, you can still detect a decent amount of difference with their predictions. So the advantage of the probability based situation is that while when you're doing likely outcomes, who's likely to win the match, or specific match scores, the right answer in many cases to maximize your ability to win those formats is to pick what you think is the most likely outcome for a match. So this basically gives you a prediction of what you think should happen under normal conditions. This is not particularly useful information for evaluating the analyst or the audience in many cases, because many times it's pretty obvious what the most likely outcome from a match is. That's not really adding any information beyond what a very simple algorithm just looking at their match histories would potentially give. What the prediction game does above this is tells you an idea of the analyst's range of possibilities. So you might say that someone is pretty likely to 4-0 their opponent, but they have a 20% chance of loss. You might give the exact same prediction of, I think that they're going to 4-0 their opponent, and they only have a 65% chance of victory. So what could possibly explain such different results when what you're predicting is the most likely outcome is a complete stomp? Well, the answer is that while that may be the most likely outcome, there are other outcomes that have pretty large probability. So the best example of this type of phenomenon would be teams that have a tendency to underperform. So if you have a team that when they come out strong dominates the competition, but when they don't, they can lose to far inferior teams, then of course you're going to pick the team that generally performs better as the favorite in that match. But by just giving a score, you might be encouraged to pick a blowout because that happens quite a bit of the time. But at the same time, you would lose the nuance of the fact that an upset was quite possible. And through this, you can be punished for overconfidence in a way that is very rarely punished within other formats. For instance, if you say that a team is 90% chance to win, that is incredibly punishing. It's quite damning evidence if this happens to you more than, let's say, 3 times in in 10 to 15 games. That's quite damning. That you are pretty dramatically overconfident in your decisions, and that you may not have a real grasp of what the possible outcomes of this match between these two rosters and what those corresponding likelihoods are. So this video is just to kind of give an idea of why I think the prediction game is better, and I hope that everyone enjoys it just as much as I do. I know that when I'm going to be looking at evaluating analysts within our own private group, that this is going to be a metric that actually, over the entire season, does give a pretty good read on a combination of how much the analyst is able to read teams, as well as their general sense of what is possible and their ability to deal with that uncertainty and not count people out.